The 30,000 stitch maintenance is something you'll want to be doing about every 3 months. If the timer's not popping up that often, then you may want to go ahead and go into your software and go through some of those procedures. To get to those, go to Tools, Settings, and the Timers tab, and then we're going to be looking at the 30,000. So we'll hit Step to begin. Please follow all the maintenance procedures very carefully and apply the proper amounts of specified lubrication during each step. Melco's not going to be held responsible if you're not doing that. Go ahead and hit Next. Here's a warning. If you currently have a hoop or clamping system on the machine, please remove it. Here's a warning that says if you currently have a hoop or a clamping system on there, to please remove it from the machine. I would include that wide angle driver, so if you have that on there, please remove that before doing this procedure. Click Next. The machine just moved the needle case out of the way for you so that you have access to this cover, and we are going to be using the 3mm and the 2.5mm Allen wrench from the set that came in your operator's kit, and this side actually uses both of these. In later maintenance, there will be the other side that gets removed, and it only uses one of these, but this side uses both the 3mm and the 2.5mm. We need to loosen and remove the 5 screws attaching this cover. So there's one deep inside of here, and these other 3, and those take the 3mm, and then this little guy takes the 2.5. So I'm going to remove that little guy first. Careful not to lose it. So this guy's pretty far in here. It always takes me a moment to find it. There we go. Now, if you are having trouble cracking that loose, what you can do is put the other end into the case and use that to give yourself a little bit extra leverage. Okay, and sometimes I can't get this one out just on the end of this, so I will leave that to last. Now we'll remove the rest of these. There we go. All right. Click Next. Now I need to rotate this cover out of the way. I didn't get the screw out of here. It's still inside of there. So I'm going to put my finger here. So as I pull and rotate this out of the way, and what we're doing is actually getting this corner out from behind the needle case, and then we can just pull this away. And my finger has that little screw trapped inside of there. So now I can get that out of there, set down the cover, and now we're going to be looking inside of here. Click Next. So as we did that, the needle came down, and that rotated everything into a position that makes it a little bit easier for us to do the next step. So now we're a little more zoomed in, and we're looking inside where we just took off that cover. And what we need to do is apply a bit of that HP grease to our applicator. And then we're going to apply this HP grease to the back side of this cam. So front surface, and then this rounded bit, that's the side. And then we're going to try to get it on the back side of that cam. So we'll come in and just kind of scrape a little off. And then I move and scrape a little off somewhere else and a little off somewhere else. So I don't want it, let me turn my applicator around. I don't want it on this surface. I want it on the surface behind that. And I often describe it as like a roller coaster track. It's got kind of a hill set to it, and we want to have that on that surface. So you can just see the edge of it now, and that's what we're looking for. We want it on that back surface, not on the side and not on the front. Click Next. So with this step, I want you to see what we need to do but it's kind of a mean trick. So we say, put your finger here, lift up. Okay, now press next in the software. So just know that this is where we need to press up, and be careful as you do so that you don't actually push this presser foot back behind this needle clamp and get it stuck there. You want to just lift up a little bit, and you're going to be doing that on that back bend of that presser foot, right? So up, just like that. Click next. So now we've got an even more zoomed in view. This is the lower portion of that cam that we just greased. And now I want you to look right in here. As we lift on that presser foot, you can see the top edge of the presser foot cam follower, the upper presser foot cam follower. So I want to take a little bit of that HP grease, and I want to place it just on the top surface of that upper presser foot cam follower, and then I'm going to let this presser foot down slowly. It's going to squish that grease just a touch. Click next. So to reinstall the right upper arm front cover, I'm going to put this post back into this cavity. I'm going to rotate up, and then I'm going to get this corner back behind the needle case and then rotate back down and line up my screw holes as best I can. Now I'm going to reinstall the screws. I'm going to put them in all the way and then back them off just enough that this can still move. Back it off just a touch. Now, as I do, I want to make sure that this is flush enough that it's not going to catch the backside of the needle case as the needle case comes over. Can't forget this little guy. All the way in and then back off just a touch. Click next. So here's a warning that tells you if you proceed without replacing this cover, damage to your machine will occur and a service call will be necessary. So this rail is what actually holds the needle bars in place. If you proceed without replacing this cover and the needle bar shifts back over, the needle bars will start dropping out of your machine. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that this is in place, just like we have it here. Have these screws all the way in and backed off just enough to allow this to move just slightly. And as you watch, these needle bars will come into place and start to hold this just like we want it to. Click next. So with that needle case holding this cover in place, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up. And if you want to, you can tighten this guy because he's in between needles. If not, you can catch him in the next step. Click next. I'm going to tighten the remaining screws. And then don't forget about this little one. Click next. So now we need to clean this groove and then reapply a thin layer of HP grease. And layer is probably a strong word. We're going to be doing just a very thin film of it. You can use lint-free cloth. I'm going to use just a cotton swab, but making sure that I don't leave any lint behind. Okay, so I'm going to remove any lint that's caught in the film of grease that was there, and then I'm going to apply a thin film of that HP grease. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to spread that across nice and thinly, take away any blobs that I see. Nice thin film of that HP grease. Click next. So now the machine just got out of the way the other direction. Move the needle case all the way over this way. It did drop a needle and it moved. the carriage all the way back, and this just gets kind of everything out of the way for us. And now we're going to be removing the left upper arm front cover, and that one takes the 3mm Allen wrench from your operator's kit. To remove the left upper arm front cover, we're just going to remove these 4 screws, and they are the 3mm. All right, so now for the tough one. So this one, I always have a hard time finding, and then if you can't crack it loose, again, sometimes it's helpful to take your Allen wrench set and put the other end of it in there to give you a little more leverage to loosen that up. Once you get it loose, you can just take that screw all the way out. If this comes out, great. If it doesn't, when you twist the cover out of the way, just keep your finger in there to keep it trapped. Click Next. So now I need to pivot this out of the way, and I'm going to just pull slightly and begin to rotate, and we're looking to get this corner out from behind the needle case, and then just pull forward. Click Next. These lights are so bright that for the camera, I'm going to cover them up with a piece of tape just for this. This is not something that you would do in maintenance, but it is going to make you seeing this bit a little bit easier. And now we need to take our applicator with a little bit of that HP grease, and we're going to apply HP grease to the presser foot cam. So I'm going to come in just here. We don't want it on the front, we want it on the right facing side. So I'm going to just scrape a little off, scrape a little off, scrape a little off. That was a lot. Let me get a little bit of that back. And I'm going to spread this out. Here we go. Just along that right facing surface. And if you have a little bit on the front, you can go ahead and clean that up. I'm just going to clean this up just a touch. The top there. That looks a lot better for me. Click Next. So now I need to reinstall the left upper arm front cover. You guys don't need to do this because you didn't put it on here, but for filming I put this piece of tape on. I'm going to take that off before I put my machine back together. And now I need to rotate this cover back into place. So I'll put this kind of post in, rotate that corner back behind the needle case, and then rotate it back into place, and then try to line up my screw holes as best I can. I'm going to set it there for a second, grab my 3mm Allen wrench and my screws, and I will begin to reinstall the screws. And just like before, I'm going to go all the way in and then back off just enough to allow that to move slightly. We're going to let the machine decide where that cover needs to be. That'll be in another step. All the way in, back off just a bit. Also making sure that when we get these in, that the screws are in far enough that they're not going to catch right there as the needle case comes back over. Last one. All the way in. Back off just a bit. Okay, and then this one does not have the other little screw down here. Click Next. Here's that same warning. If we don't replace this cover and we hit Next, it's going to move the needle case over and you're going to start dropping needle bars. And a service call will be necessary. So make sure that you have that cover in place. If for some reason something happens, the power goes out, the whatever, if you hit the E-stop, that will prevent any further movement, and you can call tech support when you get power back. Click Next. So now the machine's moving back forward and moving back into place. And now we can tighten these 2 screws, and that will hold that cover into place right where the needle case wants it. Click Next. Now the needle case has moved all the way over and I can tighten these 2 remaining screws. And the last one is always the toughest one for me to find. There we go. Click Next. Now, just like we did before, on the other side, we are going to clean this area of any lint caught in the thin film of grease that was there. Now we are going to apply our own thin film of grease, and that's that HP grease. I'm using a cotton swab. You can use lint-free cloth. Just make sure that as you do this, you're not leaving anything behind other than that thin film of grease. Okay, and then I'm going to clean anything else up that I don't like, any blobs. There we go. Click Next. Now that you're finished with this procedure, you can click Finish to get out of that window. If you have other maintenance procedures, you can do those, or you can click OK to exit out of that.